Every poultry producer faces the same financial pain each season, raising hundreds of chicks blind, wasting expensive tons of feed on unwanted males, and waiting months only to take a loss at the nesting boxes. But there's a biological powerhouse designed to eradicate this problem right from hatch day. We're talking about an unbeatable, rugged layer, capable of transforming pasture and grain into over 280 heavy, dark brown yolks a year, while consuming half the traditional ration. This is a marvel of field genetics that lets you separate females from males split-second, with 100% visual accuracy without touching a single vent. Today we break down the anatomy and genetics of the Black Star chicken. You'll discover why she dominates commercial barns and how her sex-linked inheritance protects your investment. Plus, later on we'll reveal the catastrophic biological mistake novice breeders make when trying to reproduce her, a failure that destroys profitability and unleashes chaos in the breeding pens. Let's begin. To understand this biological powerhouse, we must first travel back to the exact origin of the Black Star hen. Massive commercial poultry genetics houses faced a monumental problem decades ago in the international market. They needed to produce a rugged brown egg layer capable of competing toe-to-toe with the hyperactive, light-framed white layer lines. The consumer market demanded heavy, large, dark brown eggs, but raising traditional dual-purpose hens on a massive scale proved a financial trap for large farms operating on tight margins. The huge financial roadblock stood right in the hatchery. Half the hatches were males that consumed feed with zero return on investment for months. The ultimate answer arrived by fusing two purebred American heritage breeds, creating an unmatched industrial engine for the homestead. Poultry geneticists crossed vigorous Rhode Island Red Foundation roosters with massive Barred Plymouth Rock hens. The result of this genetic clash was not some simple barnyard mix, but the creation of the F1 line known in the market as the Black Star. This cross transformed field poultry forever and built production empires. Technicians discovered a flawless natural mechanism to slash incubation costs, cutting out the operational expense of raising unwanted males right at the source before they even take their first bite of feed. By applying this proven genetic collision, the commercial industry achieved absolute efficiency that changed the cost structure across all barns. The true magic of the Black Star rests in the genetic superiority inherited from her parent stock. The Rhode Island Red flock sire brings the inexhaustible production drive, operating like a fine-tuned engine to process hard grains and convert them into dense yolks, passing down a spectacular deep mahogany color. On her side, the Plymouth Rock mother provides a rugged frame, massive bones, and an unbreakable resistance to harsh weather, forged over decades in the coldest climates. By combining these pure lines, breeders harnessed chromosome collision at its maximum biological expression. This precise clash generates extreme vitality and field agility to cut down on extra supplementation needs across the entire calendar year. But the marvel of this F1 hybrid reveals itself with absolute clarity right in the hatching tray. We're looking at sex-linked inheritance, commanded by the dominant barring gene located on the Z chromosome. In avian genetics, the male possesses two Z chromosomes, while the female holds one Z and one W chromosome. When the solid, dark-feathered Rhode Island Red rooster fertilizes the Barred Plymouth Rock hen, the rigorous cellular math dictates a foolproof visual outcome the exact moment the eggs hatch. You can stand in front of the incubator, under the heat lamps, and separate the hatchlings with 100% accuracy. The females hatch solid black, covered in a dark, uniform down without a single visible spot. They inherit the Z chromosome from their Rhode Island father, blocking the development of the barred pattern. This is a clean, fast, and error-free identification. You know right away that every jet black pullet is a future elite laying powerhouse, ready to join your production flock without wasting a single ounce of starter feed. On the flip side, the males hatch wrapped in that same black down, but they sport a very distinct pale white spot right on the crown of the head. This small pale crown is the direct manifestation of the barred Z chromosome inherited from the mother. Thanks to this foolproof biological marker, the producer eliminates hours of exhausting work and the huge risk of injuring the delicate vent trying to sex the animals blind. You can send the males straight to fast-growth meat pens, or cull them on the spot depending on your farm's exact commercial strategy and available infrastructure. As they leave the brooder and step onto the pasture, their physical development proves why they dominate the sector. The phenotype of the adult Black Star is a spectacle of anatomical efficiency. The females develop a deep, wide frame with enough abdominal capacity to house a massive reproductive tract. They reach a robust average weight, hitting between 5 and 6 pounds. This is a heavy frame that anchors them to the ground, allowing them to tolerate freezing drafts and harsh winds without dropping their laying rates. The plumage of the female undergoes a fascinating visual transformation. The The black down matures into a dark, glossy body, shining with emerald reflections under the sun. On the neck and chest, the feathers develop an intense gold or copper tone, inherited from the paternal bloodline. These hackles create a beautiful contrast, indicating the purity of the F1 line. A barn full of black stars is a sea of golden necks and solid bodies moving with purpose, searching for forage and protein to fuel their intense metabolism. The males grow into colossal specimens, surpassing 7.5 to 8 pounds at maturity. They develop a barred plumage of gray and white tones, similar to their Plymouth Rock mother, but with a much denser muscular structure. They boast thick legs, broad breasts, and an imposing presence. Even though most breeders cull them early, those who choose to raise them get a formidable meat bird, capable of utilizing pasture to build a premium carcass in just a few months. Looking past the scale, the behavior of the black star solves the biggest headache in high-density setups: stress and cannibalism. They possess a docile, calm temperament. Their genetics calm territorial instincts, letting you manage large groups in rotational grazing or deep litter systems without constant battles for the pecking order. A calm hen avoids burning calories running away or fighting over feeders. She channels that caloric and protein energy straight into the continuous formation of yolks and thick shells. When analyzing performance, the black star tops the record books on any farm. The F1 flock experiences an accelerated sexual maturity that challenges older heritage breeds. They break into lay at 22 weeks of age. There are no delays, false starts, or prolonged consumption of grower feed with zero return. The internal machinery activates with precision, responding to sunlight and amino acid balance to kick off a massive cycle surpassing 280 eggs a year without burning out. The key to sustaining this level rests in optimal feed conversion. The digestive tract functions like a high-efficiency biological reactor. It extracts every ounce of concentrate, every insect, and every green shoot found in the pasture. The liver and oviduct work in sync, translating feed protein into continuous egg production. This efficiency cuts feed costs in half compared to traditional heavy breeds, maximizing constant profitability for every pound of pelleted feed ingested and processed day after day. As for the final product, the egg consistency is unquestionable. The behavior of the F1 flock in the nesting boxes proves flawless uniformity. The layers deliver premium commercial weight eggs, hitting extra large and jumbo sizes. The shells, thick and resistant to cracks during collection, show off a dark brown color. This intense pigmentation, deposited in the shell gland, looks attractive to local markets and demanding consumers looking for visual quality and dense nutritional content. We need to highlight a vital genetic safeguard for the business. Breeding selection has extinguished the incubation instinct, known as broodiness. In heritage breeds, a broody hen stops her laying cycle for a month to sit on a clutch, taking up space and throwing off the rhythm of the coop. Black star females avoid wasting time incubating sterile clutches or suffering hormonal pauses. They act as tireless organic machines, focused on producing high-quality protein without interruptions. The health success stems from heterosis or hybrid vigor. This explosion of vitality is reflected in the flock's resistance to environmental pathogens. The pullets show immense innate immunity against typical respiratory diseases found in closed coops, like infectious coryza or severe colds. They endure harsh winters and suffocating summers thanks to the ruggedness forged in the motherline's genes, keeping production stable and dropping mortality rates to zero. At the end of their productive cycle, the salvage value of the hen ensures capital recovery. Unlike light white lines that finish as skeletons with no usable meat, the black star maintains remarkable muscular and structural integrity. The producer harvests massive, robust carcasses, solid breasts, and dense thighs perfect for the table or heavy meat markets. Faced with this continuous success, the breeder's instinct wakes up and decides to commit a catastrophic biological mistake by crossing these champions with each other to clone them for free on the farm, unleashing an imminent collapse without even knowing it. We step back into the breeding pen 6 months later, right when you decide to take that logical leap under the midday sun. You grab those prolific first-generation black hens and put them in the paddocks with their hatchmates, the massive roosters you kept to perpetuate the bloodline. The intention feels right. You want to multiply that endless egg production without relying on commercial hatcheries. But crossing these hybrid siblings wakes up a relentless biological force that shatters your flock's uniformity in one blow. Mendelian inheritance shuffles your genetic deck with absolute disorder, dragging every hidden recessive trait right up to the surface. The feed efficiency that used to fill your pockets crashes into the ground, bleeding your daily cash flow dry. These second-generation birds inherit a voracious, unquenchable appetite, burning through mountains of concentrate from the very first weeks. You watch the feeders empty out at a staggering pace, yet the egg collection trays tell a story of total failure. The digestive tract loses its highly tuned efficiency. Instead of translating crude protein into thick yolks, the gut wastes the nutrients. The physical collapse shows up the moment you run your hands over these pullets under their feathers. Instead of the deep, wide conformation of their mothers, they develop narrow, restrictive reproductive tracts. A seasoned producer feels the pelvic bones and notices the cramped spacing immediately. This tight anatomy prevents the smooth passage of eggs. You pour in heavy bags of premium pelleted feed, but the internal machinery fails to process those inputs. They consume twice the daily ration, while the actual yield in the nesting boxes drops in half, trapping you in a cycle of feeding unproductive birds that drain your resources week after week. The ovarian development in this second line suffers a severe physiological stagnation that wrecks your financial projections. Weeks cross off the calendar, and the flock shows zero signs of physical maturity. The first lay gets pushed back with agonizing delay, sometimes stretching past 26 weeks of age. They devour expensive grower rations without giving back a single dime. When they finally decide to use the dark nesting boxes, the outcome is a random lottery of irregular sizes that no local market accepts. You gather tiny, worthless eggs sitting right next to deformed double yolk monsters that force extreme muscular strain. These disproportionate eggs cause severe structural damage to the lower tract, triggering acute cloacal prolapses that leave the hen exposed in the deep litter. On top of this reproductive disaster, you lose the massive initial advantage that made you choose this specific bloodline. The immense benefit of day-old visual autosexing vanishes. When you look under the heat lamps at your new hatch, you no longer find that predictable uniform sea of black down. You hatch chicks with copper patches, barred grays, solid blacks, and chaotic mixtures that ruin any quick visual sorting. The clean, instant sexing advantage evaporates. This clash of visual phenotypes sparks an unmanageable behavioral nightmare in high-density setups. Chickens operate on strict social hierarchies and react with instinctive aggression to extreme visual contrast within their flock. When they fail to recognize a uniform plumage pattern among their penmates, stress levels skyrocket, shattering the peace of the paddock. Vicious feather-pecking breaks out along the backs and tails. Within days, this nervous energy evolves into a raw survival instinct, turning your brooding area into a chaotic zone of aggression. The peaceful foragers transform into agitated birds fighting endless battles for dominance. Faced with this crisis in feed conversion and flock aggression, many producers feel the crushing weight of failure. Seeing the disaster of the second generation, they assume genetic independence remains impossible for the average homesteader. They give in to the frustration and go back to buying expensive boxes of day-old pullets from corporate hatcheries year after year. But right here is where you have to understand the core rule of field genetics. To rescue your capital and stabilize your numbers, the unbreakable law dictates you must never multiply chaos under any circumstances. The solution to this coop disaster is no mystery, but rather a foundational principle of preserving heritage lines. Many believe backcrossing serves to clone the hybrid, but the true mark of a master breeder involves using the F1 female as a genetic bridge to rescue and purify the two original bloodlines on your farm. Understanding this dynamic separates the professional homesteader from the amateur mixing breeds out of sheer curiosity. By intervening with absolute precision in the selection of your foundation roosters, you cut the progression of physical anomalies right at the root. You restore order at the feeders, stop the massive waste of grain, and calm the aggression on the roosting bars. Mastering this principle of controlled breeding serves as the ultimate key to breaking free from industrial dependence. You hold the power to clean the bloodline and focus that biological vitality toward uninterrupted production within your own facilities. The central technique to correct this biological detour is known among elite breeders as backcrossing. In this closed system, field engineering does not aim to stabilize the F2 offspring, but rather to reabsorb the genetic potential of the foundation parents. Here is where most folks get confused. If your goal is to perpetuate the production of auto-sexing black star chicks, backcrossing won't help you. The only path requires returning strictly to the original pure crosses. To capture that foolproof auto-sexing trait again, you must keep your lines separated and always cross a pure Rhode Island Red rooster over a pure Barred Plymouth Rock hen. On the other hand, backcrossing serves a different agricultural purpose. You use it only when you want to stabilize a new line toward one of its parents. By crossing your hybrid females back with one of the pure foundation sires, you elevate the genetic concentration toward that side to a solid 75%, filtering the recessive noise. This backcrossing process won't give you chicks that auto-sex by color, but it allows you to lock in the specific physical and productive traits you admire most to build your custom farm strain. Both paths demand strict discipline, But understanding the difference between a first-generation cross and a back cross is what puts the steering wheel of the business back in your hands and restores your profitability. Your new birds will hatch with far greater visual homogeneity, showing off deep bodies and formidable reproductive stamina out on the pasture. Whether you repeat the F1 clash or fix your own specific breed, you eliminate the size disparities that complicated your feed management and stunted the overall growth. Mastering this applied genetics lets you stabilize the calibers in the nesting boxes, ensuring a heavy, uniform carton without having to make costly outside purchases every single season. To achieve this level of poultry sovereignty, your farm must operate with a flawless reproductive biosecurity structure. The secret to long-term success relies on establishing isolated breeding pens for your pure foundation stock. You must maintain an exclusive flock of pure Barred Plymouth Rock hens and a separate flock of pure Rhode Island Red roosters. You cannot allow these foundation lines to cross with cull birds or other roaming breeds in your paddocks under any circumstances. These cores of purity serve as the biological engines of your entire business. They operate as living genetic factories that let you generate F1 hybrids year after year without ever failing on the day-old sexing. By guarding this base, you guarantee that every single hatch keeps the hybrid vigor intact. Furthermore, to prevent the degeneration of the line, you must keep a rigorous record of consanguinity within these pure breeding groups. To prevent the quality of the parent stock from decaying over time, introducing fresh, pure blood every 2 to 3 years becomes vital. But pay close attention. This fresh blood must come from certified breeders who guarantee the standard of the breed. One single flock sire with impure genetics slipping into your pens can tear down the entire cellular framework that makes your business possible. By mastering the management of your breeding stock and understanding when to cross and when to back cross, you finally eliminate the margin of error. Your farm will start operating with the exact same precision as a massive corporate laboratory producing elite birds. And most importantly, you'll do it under your own rules and with flocks totally adapted to the exact microclimate of your region. Safeguarding the purity of your origin ensures these efficient biological machines keep hatching on your homestead season after season. Moving beyond the basic cross requires mastering line breeding through controlled families. This serves as the definitive step to set the foundation of your flock and protect the health of future hatches. By organizing your breeding stock into closed groups and rotating the bloodlines, you dodge the dangerous impact of inbreeding depression. Poorly managed consanguinity shrinks the eggshell, drops fertility rates, and kills embryos halfway through their development inside the incubator. This massive failure wipes out the complex genetic work of many months of sweat and daily dedication out in the mud. When you apply strict rotation and cull the deficient birds without hesitation, the cellular profile of your flock reaches a desirable state of homozygosity. The alleles become identical and stable across their chromosomes. The result out in the field is undeniable. Your birds hatch again with impeccable visual uniformity, showing off an enviable ruggedness and total adaptation to the exact microclimate of your land. The offspring inherit the raw capacity to transform local forage into dense proteins under your specific annual temperature swings. Mastering these biological metrics transforms you into an efficient, sovereign operator. You stop being a captive buyer waiting for commercial catalogs every spring, tied down to outside hatcheries and constant inflation. You become the biological author of your own self-sufficient poultry line, building a heavy-laying flock capable of regenerating itself on your own soil. You break the commercial chain of the massive industry, securing the constant food supply of your productive environment and asserting absolute dominance over your ultimate investment out in the agricultural field. We've seen how the industry engineers its profitability and how nature unleashes chaos if you ignore its rules. Taking control of the genetics in your own breeding pens stands as the ultimate act of productive independence for any serious homesteader. Let me know down in the comments which of these breeding strategies makes the most sense for your setup. If you got some value out of this breakdown, hit that subscribe button and give the video a thumbs up so we can keep bringing you practical homesteading advice. Don't let consanguinity ruin your hatches. Take the reins of your farm today. To your success, fellow breeder. Until next time.